Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Introduction to EnergySage, Solar Made Easy with Green Energy Consumers Alliance. We are going to start in 5 minutes just to let the last few people get started, get online, and then we'll get started. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for your patience. We're just waiting until 7:35 to make sure that everyone has logged in correctly. If you have any questions, you can put it in the question uh, window and we'll follow up with you. Welcome, welcome to Introduction to EnergySage, Solar Made Easy. Thank you very much for making time for tonight. And we look forward to talking with you or hearing your questions in the question window in your GoToMeeting controls over on the upper right corner. Jim, you want to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Loey. Hi, everyone. My name is Jim Secord. I am one of the energy advisors from EnergySage. I've worked in solar for about 3 years in the Massachusetts area in a few different capacities. I love talking to homeowners. Prior to working with EnergySage, I worked for Sungevity, a large-scale solar installer, as well as a local installer on the North Shore. But currently in EnergySage, I get to talk to a number of folks about what it means to go solar, and love talking about everyone's very personal story going solar.
Great. And I'm Loey Hayes. I'm the membership coordinator for Green Energy Consumers Alliance. I am also our energy efficiency maven, and I help people who have solar questions or heating system questions. I ran our heat pump pilot project a year or so ago. All things energy related, I am happy to talk with you, follow up of this. And also with us tonight is another Green Energy Consumers Alliance staff member, Kate Marcelino, who is helping us with the meeting facilitation. So if you have any questions, Kate will be able to respond to you in the question function. So our agenda tonight, we'll start with a little overview of green energy consumers and how we came to be working with EnergySage. Then Jim will give an overview about how EnergySage works, why going solar makes so much sense, kind of how the website works, and tools and resources that you can count on if you want to start shopping for solar with EnergySage, checking out your options. And then, as I said, we'll have time for questions at the end. So Green Energy Consumers Alliance, we've been around since 1982. We are a nonprofit. We started as a heating oil buyers group, and we still perform that function. We've been pro-consumer and pro-environment from the very beginning. We work primarily in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and helping people make green energy choices is what we're all about. We have a wind power program. We have an electric vehicle program, and we do help people with heat pumps and with solar referrals. Count on us for all those things. How did we end up collaborating with EnergySage? Well, we started in 1999 with Solar Boston. We found 30 early adopters and really learned a lot and helped them get through the process of choosing a solar installer. Starting in 2002, we started purchasing solar renewable energy certificates. That's what REC stands for, RECs, solar RECs, and thus supporting over 600 projects. And in 2012, we created a subsidiary to actually install solar panels on the roof of the Sam Adams Brewery. That's in Jamaica Plain in the same small business complex where our office is located. And then in 2015, we were selected to participate in the Mass Solar Connect program, helping our members and our contacts connect with solar installers. And we were able to support 400 installations starting in that time period. And in 2017, during Mass Solar Connect 2, we got to team up with EnergySage. And we were just so impressed with their work and their model that we've continued to work with them since then. We love EnergySage because you can get competitive pricing. This is installers who all know that they are going to be bidding against each other. So they really sharpen their pencils, and you can get up to 7 quotes from these installers who have been all pre-screened by EnergySage, so you know you're not going to be dealing with a fly-by-night organization. You won't have to get any sales calls. We love this. If you've ever given your email address to a solar installer and dealt with, 3 years worth of solar calls after that experience, you'll know how getting no sales calls is really a boon. Of course, you can communicate directly with the installers as you like, but until you're ready, you don't need to share your contact information with anybody except EnergySage. Um, EnergySage's communications are so great. They really make very complicated information user friendly, and in particular the quotes that you get from them, you'll be able to see them in side by side quote comparisons, and this is so valuable because an a solar quote relies on a lot of assumptions about the cost of electricity going forward, or what your loan cost is going to be, all sorts of different things, what the efficiency of a piece of equipment is going to be. And EnergySage standardizes all those assumptions and makes them transparent. So that's wonderful. And the energy advisors, it's a tremendous service. They're independent, they're knowledgeable, they want to hear about your particular story, about your old oak tree, or your addition to the house that never gets warm, etc. They're great about all those things, and the registration is easy and it is free. So we love all those things about EnergySage, and our members love them too. Here's Linda from West Roxbury, who got her solar panels through EnergySage, and she particularly liked the fact that the bids come in that side-by-side comparison, so that you can do really an apples to apples process of making your decision. And here's a testimonial from Brian in North Kingstown, Rhode Island, who again talked about the level playing field that EnergySage creates by putting all the installers on the same set of assumptions and the same side-by-side quotes. And he notes that he was even able to share with EnergySage quotes that he got from installers outside of the EnergySage platform, and they were able to put those into a side-by-side comparison as well, and the energy advisors were able to help him evaluate all those things. So we can't say enough about how much we love EnergySage, and now to tell you more, I will turn you back over to Jim.
Well, thanks, Loie. That was a really great overview. Again, thanks everyone who's attending. My name is Jim Secord. I'm one of the energy advisors here. EnergySage is a Boston-based business. Our mission is to empower people to make smarter energy decisions through simplicity, transparency, and choice. EnergySage is a shopping resource. We are the number one most trafficked solar-related website in the U.S. So a lot of folks come here across the U.S., not just Massachusetts, to learn about the incentives in their state, how much solar costs, what it means for them, what options they have, what local installers provide solar in their area. And so that's the core function of the marketplace. A competitive marketplace like this has great benefits, first and foremost, because it does drive costs down. As Loie said, installers are willing to sharpen their pencils to connect with interested solar shoppers here. All of the installers, before they're allowed through the door, undergo a pre-screening process. We work in 37 different states and DC, so this is particularly important to us to understand the financial, the insurance, registration, and all the implications of this installer doing good business in any particular state. Solar is a decade old at this point, and this year has been a year of home improvement projects for many homeowners. Solar has been tried and true throughout, and a lot of homeowners have come to EnergySage for the simplicity's sake and understanding what this means for them. And that, what we try to do first and foremost is empower homeowners to make their own decisions and to understand the choice that they're making. You can go ahead, Louie. So EnergySage is deeply committed to transparency and choice, as I mentioned, which positions us as a trusted advisor to customers shopping for solar. Our commitment to these values positions us as a trusted advisor by combining objective solar education with a comparison shopping experience. We help solar shoppers save up to 20% on their solar project by shopping on the marketplace. While we are a for-profit company, our consumer-centric approach has earned us the support of some funding from the Department of Energy, NYSERDA in New York, and Mass CEC, which is the Clean Energy Center, which is still our largest single shareholder. Though primarily installers pay to participate on EnergySage and quote homeowners through the platform, which is our primary source of revenue. Ultimately, this makes EnergySage free for any homeowner anywhere. And it also makes solar advising sessions that I host free of charge. In general, there are a number of reasons to consider solar for your home or for your business. As listed here, I'm sure some of these come as no surprise. Solar does mean, of course, reducing your carbon footprint. The switch to solar means halting your spending on electricity. And simply put, one thing I love to share on my solar advising sessions is that purchasing solar is a lot like prepaying your electricity needs for the next 25 years. Not everybody purchases solar. There are financing questions that we love to tackle. A number of homeowners find cost-effective ways to finance. There are a number of incentives that help solar save homeowners money. First and foremost, there is the federal tax credit, which is worth 26% of the cost of the project. This functions as it reduces what you owe in your federal tax liability. So there's also a $1,000 state tax credit to go solar in Massachusetts specifically, as well as a production-based incentive, which compensates you for the energy your solar system makes over a 10-year period. A couple other items that I love within this list are that going solar supports local clean energy jobs. There are a lot of solar installers out there on the road with plumbers, HVAC contractors, all kinds of home improvement contractors, and they're all very similar these days. And solar is very established. And specifically for the homeowner as well, solar can add value to your home apart from some of these other great ones like U.S. energy dependence and attractive financial returns. So as I mentioned, EnergySage is first and foremost a resource tool for shopping. There are articles, graphics, videos, and product information on EnergySage as you begin to investigate. There's plenty to learn, and if you've ever looked into solar, it can be a bit of a rabbit hole, and the biggest barrier is getting started. We lead with objective consumer education first, so that solar shoppers feel confident they're making the best energy decisions for them. And so first and foremost, this is where most people begin, is just, hey, what are the tax credits in Massachusetts, and where are installers? All of that and more we have as resources on EnergySage to get going. I've talked to so many people who have just shopped and looked around and come across EnergySage and immediately found that there is an oasis of information here that is clear and concise and up to date regarding solar policies, solar prices. If you've ever looked into it, it tends to change from time to time. Every state is different. Every homeowner is different. And we can talk a little bit more about that. There's a great benefit in the solar advising sessions we host because of that very reason. All right. One of the first educational tools that a lot of homeowners come across on EnergySage is our solar calculator, which provides you with an instant estimate of your property's solar potential and financial savings. This is an optional first step. It is an estimated cost and savings tool. Most homeowners, when they go through this tool, see that there's an average of a 20-year savings. The average 20-year savings, excuse me, is about $41,000 in Massachusetts, and that their payback period averages around 6.5 years, right? Solar is pretty personal. It depends on your house, your roof, your shading, how much energy you use today, how much energy you might use in the future. And this initial tool helps you get a pretty clear idea of what solar might mean for you. As you move past this tool, the EnergySage marketplace can customize specifically to your home with real life quotes from real local installers. But all of this does initially take into account your roof, the economics for you, but that gets even better. Next. The core experience of EnergySage, as I mentioned, is a marketplace. And the goal here is to connect homeowners who are interested in solar, whether they're just beginning or they know a thing or two about solar, with pairing them with local providers. Massachusetts is home to a very competitive solar marketplace. There are a long list of installers in the state and on EnergySage. So to break it down, property owners create profiles on EnergySage, specifying your location, how much energy you use on a monthly or annual basis. All of this you can usually find pretty easily on your Eversource or National Grid bills. And also sharing what kind of system preferences you might have. You may or may not have these, but it's a great thing to share in case you want a long-term loan or a short-term loan. Installers can go ahead and quote that. And so installers review all of this account information using aerial images, often their solar design software, with which they can submit custom quotes to homeowners online. Property owners then, once they've received a number of quotes, can compare apples to apples. If you've ever used Kayak or Priceline, EnergySage is somewhat similar in this experience, where we can see a number of different offers and compare them across the board and clearly understand what makes the most sense and what's the best use of money. As Loie mentioned, EnergySage does not ask for phone numbers. That is completely optional. If you've ever shopped for solar before, you may or may not notice you can get calls once in a while from an installer. Maybe you have a great home for solar and they really want to talk. That is not a requirement on EnergySage. We have a chat tool function which lets you start the conversation and really engage with installers when you want to. Their phone numbers and their information is listed here. So if you like a quote and you want to take some next steps and creep forward, or you're ready to jump into it, you have the opportunity to start the conversation on your own. Next. So comparing quotes. When you create your profile, you get quotes. This is the page you land on. This is what you experience. All right. As you can see, this is EnergySage. It looks like there are 3 quotes for this in this instant. So all of the key quote stats are at your fingertips. If you've ever looked into solar before, there are a couple things to look out for, and we put those front and center on the first page you land on. There are some badges indicating and highlighting important differentiators. Within this box, you can see most important equipment, manufacturer offer, most popular pro, highest quality panel. It's safe to assume a lot of the homeowners that we see signing up for EnergySage, this is their first time shopping for solar. They don't know what equipment is popular. They're not necessarily sure what a good price is. So we take some of the brunt of that and highlight for you of all these offers, what is characteristic of this quote specifically that you're receiving to make life a little bit easier. And as you're working through this page, you can begin to sort them or favorite them, or reach out to these installers. From here, there are a couple other places to go. You can go into a full quote to see more, or a place I really love is the side-by-side view, which I'll talk about in just a second. It is a great place. I take all of my solar advising sessions in this direction because it's a lot of information that is very organized and makes solar very easy. So if you wouldn't mind, Loie, let's jump into that slide. All right. So the EnergySage side-by-side view, as I mentioned, I'm very fond of. It is a lot like a spreadsheet, but it is organized in a very friendly manner, grouping information by category. First in some important information, then installer, equipment, costs and benefits, and financing. Really grouping it up so that we have solar information in bite-sized chunks. So this is most valued by a lot of the shoppers I get to speak with. Here we can compare offers and metrics across the board in an apples to apples fashion. As you'll see in this picture, right, we can see the labor warranty compared across these installers, the 4 of them. The electricity needs met, the price per watt, some of these key factors we might be considering in shopping for solar. In here as well, we can dive into equipment quality differences. EnergySage is honored to work with NREL, which is the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. They are a government organization that does research on solar and renewable energy technology. Specifically, we partnered with them to standardize a rating system for solar equipment. So if you're not sure if an LG solar panel is good, rest assured that NREL, a government organization, is the one pointing out in partnership with EnergySage that this is excellent rated equipment, or whatever the rating might be. But that's a very important relationship that we've taken a lot of pride in to help homeowners understand what exactly are you getting. Is this good, pretty good, or very, very good equipment that you're receiving from a particular solar installer? So customers have access to independent energy advisors who can help them through the learning and shopping process. I am one of the energy advisors here, as mentioned. The key role of what I do here is to act as a liaison in a homeowner shopping process. We have the best interest of the solar shopper in mind. We can assist in early stages learning or throughout final decision-making processes. Being an extra set of eyes on a set of final quotes. We're here to act as a sounding board or interpret your quotes with you. As mentioned, it can be a rabbit hole learning about solar, and it seems as though there's a lot of things to consider. There are only a few things to consider that we can easily highlight for you. But as mentioned earlier before as well, we want to make this decision made by you, and for you to feel empowered. Solar can be pretty personal, right? The system that you get might be very different from the system that your neighbor got last year or a few months ago. And maybe you've talked to them a little bit, but you may use power differently, your roof may be oriented differently. So we often have conversations about, what does solar mean for you? What does solar mean with this installer versus that? There are all kinds of different offerings, right? Some installers may just do solar, some may do roofing and electric vehicle installations and solar, and they can provide a litany of services for some projects you might be looking into. And so we're happy to assist there. There's a team of 5 energy advisors here, and it's our job in whatever state the homeowner lives in to make life easier, quite frankly, and to help coordinate with the installers as well and lenders of solar financing loans to ensure that your shopping process is smooth and easy and confident. Next. So the Green Energy Consumers Alliance partnership with EnergySage has been a very exciting one. As Loie mentioned, we've worked together since 2017, which is very, very exciting. For every person who goes solar through the Green Energy Consumers Alliance program, and this link at the bottom of the page, EnergySage donates $250 to the Green Energy Consumers Alliance to support the incredible work that they do. This has been a pretty quick snapshot of EnergySage. I'm more than happy to talk in more detail about what this means for you, what this means in general, benefits of going solar in Massachusetts, as I mentioned a little bit quickly earlier on. But we're going to open up in just a few minutes some time to take questions and comments about that you might be wondering regarding solar in Massachusetts.
Great, thanks, Jim.
Mhm.
Again, you can put your questions in the question function of the GoToWebinar box that's on the upper right corner, and Kate will help us with reading those questions. There are a few too many people to unmute everybody. If you like this webinar, we have more coming up all the time. We have another solar workshop that will be for people who are a little further into the process, but you're welcome to come to that next Wednesday evening. Also, part of our EV program, electric vehicle program, we have a workshop called Phasing Out Gasoline here and around the world. That's next Thursday at noon. And then in March, on March 9th, we're having a heating system efficiency workshop. And you can find all of our webinars at greenenergyconsumers.org/events. You can also find our recorded webinars on our YouTube channel. We will be sending out these slides to everyone who registers, so you don't need to write down that very complicated URL right now. You can also just Google us on YouTube and you would find our videos, as well as EnergySage's videos. And we are a nonprofit, so we do welcome donations. Donations help support our advocacy program, which is pushing for strong and equitable climate policy in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Our electric vehicle program, Drive Green, also relies on donations to help with the advocacy and education part of that. And our green municipal aggregation program is helping to bring greener electricity to entire towns with one flip of the switch. So we're really excited about that, and our nonprofit mission helps with that. And now we'll open it up to questions. Kate, if you could read us the questions, that would be great.
Sure. The first one I see is, I'm surprised the speaker said that solar is a decade old. Shouldn't that be about 3 decades old at least?
That's a good question. Thanks to whoever mentioned it. Solar effectively is 3 decades old. It's been around since then, but not in the same fashion that it has been for the last decade. Solar, the federal investment tax credit, which I mentioned, was a pretty big jobs creator in about 10 years ago. It spurred on the start of a number of solar installers, solar businesses of all forms. But in the 70s and 80s, solar was a pretty new technology, or a lot of homeowners and some folks off grid began to adopt interesting ways to produce power remote from the grid, and so forth. It also has some famously in space projects and satellites and so on, all of those function off of solar power directly. So solar has been around for quite some time, but not in the residential home improvement marketplace that it is today, which is truly thriving in a number of different states across the United States.
Yeah, solar has been a technology that's been employed by the U.S. government since the Apollo project. So definitely it's older than a decade, but has seen a big upturn in the last decade and a new level of commercialization.
Yeah.
Kate, what's the next question?
Are tax credits available for rental properties for a single family home that is rented?
It's a good question. That comes up fairly often. If you're a renter, you're not eligible to take advantage of the federal tax credit. The federal tax credit is for the owner of the home. So you do need to be the owner of the home, or the deed needs to be in your name to take advantage of that and truly go solar. If you are a renter, there are other options. EnergySage actually has a few of them. There are programs called community solar, which are a little bit different than rooftop solar. If you've ever driven on the Mass Pike, and you've probably seen a few solar plots, solar fields across the state, a number of those are community solar projects which you can subscribe to or purchase. And the power produced from them goes to offset a portion of your electricity costs. And so if you're a renter, or if you're someone who loves your oak trees and you do not want to get rid of them because they provide excellent shade or cooling for your home, I 100% understand. I grew up in a home very similar to that. We love our trees. There are other options besides rooftop solar. Community solar can be a great way not only to save money, but to offset your carbon footprint and support local solar. So I would absolutely look into that. EnergySage, if you check out our website, within the main navigation bar, there's a tab that says community solar, and you'll be able to find in Massachusetts probably 3 to 5 current available projects that you can subscribe to.
Jim, just to clarify, if a landlord wanted to put solar on a property that they rented out, they could claim the tax incentive for that property, could they not?
Yes, they could. The landowner, the property owner could take advantage of the tax credit to invest in solar for the property as the primary source of power there.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Kate, what's the next question?
Years ago, we looked at solar for our triple decker that has a slate roof. The installers had very little experience installing on slate, and we did not want to wreck our roof. Have there been improvements with installations?
Yeah, that's another good question. So slate roofs are typically a barrier for solar installers. They're the nature of slate being brittle, easy to break, is not compatible with solar. There are a number of roof materials that are, but just with slate being what it is really hard to work with for installers. They want to make sure that for the next 25 years, the expected lifetime of the solar system, that your roof isn't going to encounter any issues. And unfortunately, with slate, it likely would. Specifically during installation, having some guys or gals walking on the roof installing the system, it's often encouraged to have an installer out to take a look at the roof, and slate is usually one of those that puts the brakes on, unfortunately.
But again, community solar might be an option for someone with a slate roof, or perhaps ground mounted panels, if there's adequate space on the property for ground mounted panels.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Kate, want to ask our next question?
Yep. Next question is, how bad is to overestimate / underestimate electricity usage?
Interesting question. So if you overestimate your electricity usage, if you're not exactly clear on how much energy you use on an average basis, monthly or annually, go ahead and put in what you think is best. Eversource and National Grid have some really easy resources. If you log into your portal there, view your bill. You can find some of this stuff pretty easily. I get to see a lot of electric bills, so I can say that in confidence throughout the country. National Grid and Eversource are pretty good at telling their consumers what, how much power they're actually using. If you're someone who knows what you currently use, but you think you might need more power in the future, that's a really great question. I'm having conversations these days with a lot of homeowners who are adopting, charging electric vehicles at home, or they've just added a heat pump. Some folks throughout COVID may have done all kinds of other projects. I've talked to folks with jacuzzis as well, which of course add a lot of power. Some of those things we know how to plan. So if you're overestimating because you think you might have more, that's absolutely something a solar installer can talk to you about. Electric vehicles are pretty straightforward there. And so if that's a situation that you're in, we can, as solar advisors, we can easily have that conversation, and a solar installer can absolutely help there as well.
Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. One thing I've heard that's a reason to be cautious about overestimating if you're not foreseeing any increase in your usage, you might not want to overestimate, because those credits that accrue to your electric count can never be turned into a payment from your utility company to you for the value of those credits. It's always going to be just a credit on your account. And the only way you can, in a sense, utilize those extra credits that you're not using if your system was too large is either add something like a jacuzzi that sucks up a lot of electricity, or to donate those extra credits to a tax exempt organization within your area of the grid.
Yep,
You say that's
right.
accurate, Jim?
Yeah, that is what you're talking about there, Lois, has a name. It's called net metering. On a day-to-day basis, your solar system is going to produce power. That energy is going to go, to your home first and foremost. But you may produce a lot more than you use, and so that energy flows out to the grid, and you get credit for it. I like to think of it as store credit, right? You couldn't use it at that time, but you can come back later and use it. Most homeowners, cooking dinner or watching TV at night will need to use power, and it won't come from their solar system. So they use credit, power from the grid, and the credits that they produced earlier during the day from their solar effectively cover that cost. So net metering is a really fundamental resource, right? It's a one-to-one credit for power produced, relative to the cost of energy. And if you do oversize your system, right, there is some leniency from utilities about oversizing, right? If you have a specific reason, it's pretty easy to petition and say, hey, yeah, well, I know this is a little bit big, but it's because I'm getting an electric vehicle. And they say, hey, no problem, most of the times. But there's no financial incentive in oversizing your system to make money. As I mentioned, net metering is compensation or credit, and not checks written by the utility saying thanks for the power. We loved it, and so there's no specific incentive for homeowners to oversize for that reason. You mentioned, you're exactly right, Loie. I've spoken to some landlords who live in a duplex or a triple decker. They may own their system. Their system produces a lot of power. It covers their electricity bill first, and any remaining production can offset one of the other tenants' electricity bills, or a tax exempt organization. You can effectively donate some of your credits to help someone else out, friends or family, someone in need. So there's some flexibility in what you can do with that if you are producing a little bit more than you need. But in general, there's nothing wrong with producing a little bit more. Most people I talk to, they might go, 105, 110, 115% over if they're if they know they're going to make some improvements at the home. You know, they might have kids at school, you know, virtually these days. They might be anticipating the adoption of an electric vehicle. There are a few reasons, and you know, as I said before, installers are really keen on making good recommendations there, as are the energy advisors here. So it's a conversation we have on a daily basis.
I do know of one pair of brothers where one has a solar system that produces more than he needs, and he uses a simple form to tell Eversource to routinely send some portion of his excess to his brother, and then his brother pays him back for the going value of those kilowatts. So it is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Effectively, Loie, that's very similar to the way that the program I mentioned, community solar, functions, right? Energy produced somewhere else. It is directed towards a beneficiary and who receives the credit from for a discounted rate. So it's a great way to fashion in your setup.
Great. Kate, you want to tell us the next question?
Yep. Next question is, our roof is 18 years old and has 2 minor places that are already leaking. Should I replace the roof before undertaking solar?
Yep, that's a great question. I would recommend replacing your roof if that's currently what's happening. In general, in the Northeast, solar installers would recommend that if your roof is older than 15 years old, that you should replace it before going solar. Solar systems and roofing equipment are both probably the two things that last the longest in your home, besides the home itself. And it's warranted for the longest time, usually about 20, actually always 25 years for panels and all the other equipment. So it makes a lot of sense to make sure that those two live happily ever after for the next 25 plus years. In the context of roof leaks or any repairs that you may need to get done, it's going to make your life a lot easier to do that ahead of time rather than do it 5 years from now when you have solar there and maybe you need to remove that system before doing any roof work. When I've encountered that, it's a headache that most people would rather not put themselves in, and it pays to take care of that today. And then do solar when you're ready to, and the roof is ready to.
Next question, guys, is it ever practical to put panels on a west-facing roof?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, south is ideal, right? You're going to get the most direct sun on the south-facing direction. If you look around, you'll see a lot of solar panels on east and west roofs. I would not recommend north. You're not going to get very much production there, but west is absolutely fine.
And next one is there a cost to use EnergySage? If so, what is it?
EnergySage is free to homeowners. If you're a solar installer, you pay to submit a quote to each homeowner, but for homeowners, EnergySage is free of charge for any of the products I mentioned, the calculator, the core marketplace of signing up and getting quotes from local installers, as well as talking to a solar advisor like myself. So it's 100% free.
And that's true for small businesses as well. Is that right, Jim?
That is exactly right.
And I'm going to skip over one question that I feel like we've answered about a 3-unit condo and what the options for putting solar on that house would be. I think community solar would be a good option. The next question is, some solar companies pay for installing the system and recoup the money over many years through usage charges. Is your model only for homeowner, or to purchase the solar panels up front with or without financing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there are a couple models for solar in general. EnergySage doesn't prescribe to one of them over the others. Though I will say the majority of homeowners I talk to end up financing their solar systems. Some people I talk to purchase their systems outright, and then others fall under or subscribe to a leasing or what we call a power purchase agreement offer, which is, it sounds like what this question is directed towards. A lease is where another solar company owns the system. They buy the equipment, they install it on your roof. So there's no money down, there's no financing involved. Effectively, they're your new power company. You're just almost like your relationship with Eversource or National Grid, where you rent power from them today at a particular rate for energy. This lease or power purchase agreement is very similar. You're just effectively buying power at a lower rate, and it's coming directly from your home, and you know where it's coming from specifically, from a solar system. So some installers do that today. I'd say leasing was more popular when solar was new, but as more and more solar incentives have grown throughout the United States, homeowners have come to understand the tax implications, the financial implications, the added value to their home. There's been a greater adoption of ownership in solar. I would also say that it's much easier to, if you sell your home in 10 years after installing solar, it's much easier to sell that home, specifically because you own it, right? It's like adding value, like a pool or a new bed, a new bathroom or kitchen might add. Solar is very similar. With the leasing model, that is not owned by you. So you need to make sure that the new homeowner is in agreement with the lease option. So that has slowed down the adoption of leases, and effectively through financing, you can get a lot of the financial benefits. Most homeowners are able to find really low financing rates and often very, very low monthly financing costs as well. Very similar to their electricity costs. But I hope I've hit that homeowner's question on the head about leasing specifically.
And Kate, before we move on, the question about condos, solar for condos, I will point out that there's information on the EnergySage website specifically for condos, and also the Massachusetts government website, so mass.gov, has a solar guide for condominium owners, and that's a great resource. So start there and let us know if you have more questions.
Thank you, Loie. Next question is something we can probably follow up with after for everybody, but do you have a list of Boston area contractors that do renovations that include solar installations?
That's a good question. Yes, yeah, we do. We do have a page about that. Happy to share it. My email is here for anyone who has questions. Drop me an email tonight if you have anything in mind right now. But EnergySage does have a list of contractors. Though the best way to get quotes for them really would be for signing up for EnergySage. It does take just about 5 minutes to get started, and you would get quotes within a day or two. And you most likely will get more cost-effective prices by going through that process rather than by reaching out to them directly on your own. Just as EnergySage is a competitive marketplace, those installers may be willing to put their best foot forward for homeowners on EnergySage rather than the ones who give them a call in the middle of the day. And so I would recommend going on that route specifically. There are a number of solar installers and contractors in Massachusetts. Some of them do roofing. I don't know how many do renovations specifically. Like if this person means are there solar installers that are builders as well? They do construction. I'm not totally sure about that one. Many solar installers are roofers, solar installers, of course, and they do electric panel upgrades, electric vehicle equipment. charging equipment, and sometimes other products like HVAC, sometimes. But good question.
And
Next
Jim,
question.
and hold on, and Jim, when people register, when they create a profile on EnergySage, there is, correct me if I'm wrong, a text field where people can just type in, any kind of description of the type of renovation that they're planning.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're signing up for EnergySage and your house is undergoing a renovation today, there is a place for you to say that that's happening. And then there's also another place for you if you have designs or images of what it looks like today or what it's going to look like in the future with a new roof or a new section built on. You can upload those documents so that installers can know ahead of time and save a conversation or two, get all that pertinent information in front of them right away.
Next question is, do you know if any panels are American made? And does EnergySage work with companies who will do work outside of Route 495?
There are a couple of solar manufacturing companies that work that are US based companies, and some that manufacture in the United States as well. There are about 3 companies I can think of off the top of my head, and 1 Canadian company as well, that are very popular and highly rated. Some of them are names you may know, like LG or Panasonic, Japanese and South Korean companies that are very popular, manufactured elsewhere, but assembled in the United States. So those are also very popular products as well. I'm not sure about the second half of the question about certain locations, about local installers, but I can say that Massachusetts is a saturated market. There's a lot of installers everywhere in the state. And solar installers are also, unlike plumbers or some other contractors, they're willing to drive the distance to meet with you, to check out the property, to service you. So I would say solar installers are road warriors. Their territories usually spread pretty far, and many installers work in not just not one state alone. They may work in Rhode Island or Connecticut as well. So I wouldn't be too worried about not having service by an installer in your area of the state. Good question.
You have installers that pretty much cover the state, don't you?
Yep. Yeah, they cover the whole entire state.
Yeah.
Even I just worked with someone last week who works in Martha's Vineyard, or lives in Martha's Vineyard. We have an installer who was more than willing to service Martha's Vineyard.
Next question is, what questions do you need to ask your electric company to make sure you can be on the grid? If you are on the grid, can you operate your solar panels when the grid fails?
Good question. And for you as the homeowner, there's nothing that you need to do to get permission to install solar. The solar installers really offer a turnkey process. So to make this happen, they pull permits, because since it's a building project, there's a construction permits that they do with the town, and then they let Eversource or National Grid or whatever utility you're partnered with, they let them know that you're going solar, and they do the paperwork for that. Can you repeat the second part of the question for me, Kate?
Jim, I think there is in Boston, there are some restrictions, some areas that are restricted for solar installations, particularly Beacon Hill, and I believe Back Bay. These are historic districts.
Yeah, since
yeah,
historic districts are under association or protected by historic rules and so forth, you may, if you live in one of those areas, you may face hurdles going solar, and that may totally disable you from going solar. Loie, I'm not sure, I may have heard it incorrectly. What was the second half of that question? It was a good one.
That I can't answer, but I will add, in terms of the Beacon Hill, it's not simply the historic covenants, but it's also actually the way the grid is wired there. It's something like a spoke system as opposed to a linear system or something like that, where they can't allow new installations there because of the way the electricity from your panels would go into the grid. It would end up backfiring somehow.
Well, I'll move on because we are at 8:31 or 8:30 now. So I'm happy to stay if everybody else is. But the next question is the cost of solar going to lower if tariffs on China are removed?
Good question. I'm not an expert in all of the kind of the trade level solar rules. There has been some effect on the cost of solar due to that, due to tariffs and so forth. It's hard for me to say specifically. I haven't looked into it in full detail. Though regardless, solar does continue to get cheaper despite that. Solar has specifically been really resilient through the pandemic. As I mentioned, this year has been a year of home improvement projects for a lot of folks. And I've often liked to say, even for myself here in my apartment, that as my world has become my living space, I'm constantly improving it and so forth. Solar has been one of those things too that is proved resilient throughout the last year that we've had. But to answer the question specifically, I don't know the full implications or the effects that it would happen if those are removed. But it's a really good question.
Sure. Okay. Why don't we take another couple questions?
Sure. Next question is, I'm a Massachusetts resident, but want to put solar on a house in Vermont. Can EnergySage help with that? And as a Mass resident, do any tax breaks apply?
That's a good question. So it might depend on how often you live at that house. Based on what I understand, the federal tax credit can be applied to, it doesn't have to be applied to a home you specifically live at full time. You can be a Massachusetts resident and go solar in Vermont. But the qualification for any Vermont incentives may be different. That's a good question.
And the next one.
Next one, I think I'll look at a few that might be touching on some different subjects. Mm-hmm. Do any of the companies include recycling of the panels at their lifespan?
That's a good question. There are a couple very cool companies who've popped up in the last couple of years or so that offer battery recycling, solar recycling. It's not specifically something that installers are selling solar with up front. Not at the moment, no. But there are other resources that we'll be developing that I understand that it will either be state partnered or private businesses that offer to claim solar panels after their usable life is expired and arrange that with homeowners. Typically, solar will last a homeowner more than 25 years, right? It's pretty durable equipment, silicon wafers sandwiched between tempered glass. So it's built to last. There are no moving parts. But when that time comes for that system to be recycled, there are a few companies that are involved in doing that. As I mentioned, the solar installers don't participate in offering that during the sale of the solar system.
Jim, inverters used to need to be replaced more frequently than the panels themselves. Is that still true?
That is still true. Loey, the inverter is the heart and soul of the solar system. Solar panels capture DC energy. An inverter is used to turn it into AC energy, which your home and the grid use. And there are two kinds of inverters. One of them lasts 10 years and is replaced by your installer. And then one of them should last for 25 years, which is called the microinverter.
Great, thanks.
And then I'll just ask one more question, maybe combine two, and we can finish up here. I apologize if any of them have been missed. If we did not touch on your specific question, feel free to reach out to Loey or Jim, and we will offer a recording of this to everybody also afterwards. So solar representatives showing up seem to emphasize power rate contracts. Do you have thoughts on this option versus purchase? And then thoughts on leasing versus purchase?
Yeah, so thoughts on leases versus purchase. As I mentioned, purchase is in form of a cash purchase, is rare but very effective. It costs money to borrow money, so financing has its own costs sometimes over time, right? Leasing is a good way to save money, though it is not adding value to the home, since it's not owned by you as the homeowner. And you end up forfeiting the federal tax credit and any state and local incentives. So you will get cheaper energy, but you do not get the tax incentives involved, right? With a purchase or with the financing of a solar system, you do pocket all of the benefits involved in solar directly. So, as I mentioned, Massachusetts homeowners save usually about $41,000 over time. You may not save that much if you lease your solar system.
Yeah, it's pretty much guaranteed that you wouldn't save that much if you leased your solar system, which is why installers may have a tendency to push the power purchase contract idea, because they're going to be able to pocket more of the income stream from those solar panels. If you can't afford to purchase, or if you can't afford to finance, toward purchase, that's always a better option than leasing, at least from a financial point of view.
Yeah, I've talked to a number of homeowners, Loey, who they retired and can't take advantage of the tax credit in full. They may not have significant tax liability, so leasing can be a really good option for them, because those things are not required. But
Cool.
Most installers lead with financing, because there's a lot of benefits to reap.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for making time. As we said, we'll be sending out the recording of the webinar once we've gotten that cleaned up. And feel free to contact us and come again to Green Energy Consumers Alliance webinar. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Thanks, everyone.